All right, everyone, how are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, we talk with guitar tech, bass tech, stage manager Ace Bergman. Ace tells us a little bit about his history growing up in LA, hosting a radio show, LA Metal, if you remember that. Becoming a guitar tech, hooking up with Slash, becoming very well known for his relationship with Slash. And he talked to us about his previous job before he did all that, which was, making bombs. Not the kind you're thinking of. He was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps, and he talked a little bit about that and how his experience with that is why he doesn't get stage fright being a guitar tech. Anyway, it was a lot of fun getting to know him. We talked about a lot of other stuff too. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
My name's Ace. I'm mainly a guitar tech. I've been a guitar tech a little over 20 years. Lately I've been dabbling in bass teching, which is very similar, but when you're at the high levels and you have a dedicated bass player, they'll definitely let you know the difference between guitar and bass.
Yeah.
And I do a bit of stage managing reluctantly. So yeah, I love touring. I've been in the business a long time. Most people know me because I've worked with Slash a lot for the last 13 or 14 years. Lately, I've been doing a lot of work with Matchbox 20 and Rob Thomas. I've toured with Whitesnake. I'm born and raised in LA, and I got my start there. So I don't live there anymore. I'm in Michigan now, but being in LA, I definitely got a lot of the 911 calls and a lot of the, on-demand stuff, and I had to take it. So yeah, I've worked for a lot of people over the years doing local stuff, studio stuff, in guitar stores. I had a band. I had a TV show. I hosted a death metal TV show.
Oh, wow. In LA?
In LA. Yeah, we were broadcast. It was pre-YouTube. So we actually had to find sponsors and had seasons and weekly episodes and ran out of money. You can't really do that when it's a YouTube show, fortunately. You don't have to come up with overhead to buy airtime every week. But we did. We made 2 seasons and ran out of money. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
What was it called?
LA Metal. Hang on. I might have a beanie here somewhere. I mean, this was 2002, 2003. That was my first job in the music business. It was right when I got out of the Marines. And, I played guitar with some friends, and we were just sort of dicking around, bedroom grindcore, like, drum machines and horror movie clips. And then, but one of my friends did audio at a local TV station. And, he got the other guy in our band in there doing audio too. And they said, we can use the studio in the middle of the night and buy airtime pretty cheap. Let's do a TV show. So, and they asked me to host it. So that was fun. I did 2. Yeah. We built like a whole crew, and it's one of the best times I think of my life. I mean, I was kind of a minor celebrity there in LA. I was at 3 or 4 shows a week. I'd interview all the bands that come through. Every week we'd interview like one touring band, like Immolation or Cephalic Carnage or Cannibal Corpse, and then one of the local bands, to help them out, like Cerberus or, just, so it was a lot of fun. And it was just fun to be such an integral part of the music scene. And then when that folded, I knew I wanted to do music, and I've always liked working with tools. So, but I also, at the time, I was kind of career minded, and I was thinking, like, if doing drum machine grindcore as a career sounds a little, I mean, people do it, and I didn't know that at the time. Like, I had no idea. Like, I have friends that had bands back then, and they've made a career out of it. They've just taken hold of the industry and do their own merch, their own booking. There's a whole, a whole economy built around that's really impressive. And I didn't know, I didn't have the foresight to be a part of that. But I knew if I worked on guitars, then I could make a career out of that, hopefully. And I did.
So were you self-taught
on guitar or as tech?
No, were you self-taught once you started working on guitars? Was it?
I mean, I like everyone else, I dicked around and took apart my own guitars and, packed a couple control cavities with cigarette wrappers and stuff, just dicking around in my youth, and had a couple of guitars that I, sold because they played like crap. But when I knew that I wanted to be a guitar tech, I took my GI Bill money and I went to Musicians Institute, and I did the guitar building program. That was a lot of fun. And so I did, that was 6 months, and I learned how to build guitars. My friend Sasha Dunable, actually.
Yeah, Dunable Guitars.
Yeah, I knew him before. I met him when I did the TV show. He was one of the local bands I put on my TV show. And we've been friends ever since. And, we shared a jam room, my band and Intronaut. He played bass in my band for a weekend. And he went to the guitar building school, and he obviously decided to build guitars. I knew that I didn't want to work in a factory, I knew I wanted to tour. I've always been a road person. When I was 13, I grew up in LA, but then my parents bought a hotel up in the Eastern Sierras and we moved up there. So I was displaced pretty young. And, I lived in this hotel, and we had all these people coming through on the road, transients that would come stay with us and work with us. And that's, I drive around, I was 14 years old in a pickup truck, drinking beer, listening to AC/DC with some dude with warrants in Alabama who was working for my parents, and that was kind of how part of my growing up, so I met, road people. And then when I, that was a little town I went to high school in, and then I moved back to LA, was couch surfing, got thrown out of college because I just didn't care. And then I joined the Marines, and I did that for 4 years. Wow. I was infantry. So, and that gave me a lot of my approach to guitar teching, a lot of, discipline, and a lot of the ability not to complain about stuff. You get roadies like, oh, this hotel's not as good as the one we were at last. And, and I'll just turn around and say, my old job, I used to, sleep in holes I dug in the ground, or there were bullets flying over my head. Yeah. So stuff like that kind of puts it in perspective. I should mention right now, I have ADD, so my stories cycle back on each other, and it's like,
if anyone understands that, we do.
Oh yeah, no, I actually found out I have ADD through a Guitar Player magazine back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Because I was, doing all that's in the 90s and 80s. That's how you learned how to play guitar when you were a kid in a small town. And I just took they had a survey do you have, a lot of musicians have ADD. Take this questionnaire, and if you answer yes to more than 10, and the dude sounded like he was following me around and reading my brain all day. So yeah, that's how I found out I had ADD. I forgot why I started that story.
That's fine. Did your parents or anybody in your family, were they into music at all?
Yes. Like I said, I grew up in LA, actually in Hollywood. My dad was a paralegal, and he worked for Kim Fowley and Rodney Bingenheimer. And so, that was late 70s when I was born. So my dad, took Joan Jett to buy her stage clothes at the Pleasure Chest before she was old enough to get in there by herself. Wow. He tells these stories about hanging out backstage at the whiskey with, a young Van Halen. which is super cool because, I did that tour earlier this year with Wolfgang Van Halen. And, it was just like, and he's the sweetest, nicest, that he's probably the future of guitar. So it'd be nice.
I've heard he's just a great guy.
Yeah, no, he's, and like, I was able to tell him like, this is cool because, 45 years ago, our dads were hanging out and here we are backstage,
That's cool.
So, yeah. And then, that was all before I was born. Like, and by the time I was getting into music, it was a rebellious thing. Like, my dad listened, his records collection ended at Who's Next. So, like I listened to a lot of Beatles with him and like early rock and roll, but he did not like, my parent and my mom listened to a lot of classical, but they did not understand when I wanted to listen to Def Leppard and then Guns N' Roses. And then especially when I got into Slayer and then Morbid Angel. And then, it was all noise and Satan and cursing. They're not Christian, but it's definitely not social music either. No. And not what they want, they wanted their kid to grow up to be a lawyer for the ACLU, not, some dude burning a cross into his forehead or something. I didn't either.
Yeah. Coming out of the Marines and once you are coming out of, MIT, what was the first like real gig you got?
So when I was at MIT at the guitar building school, there was a guitar store pretty nearby there in Hollywood called Black Market Music. It's gone now, but that was like that was like the cool store, where all like, the dudes that worked at the counter were in Danzig, and John Frusciante would come in loaded on heroin and offload his, allotment of guitars. Bands would come in off tour and just dump a back line, and then another band would come in and pick up a back line for tour. So that was like the cool, like used guitar store. Anybody in LA 25 years ago in the guitar scene could tell you about it. And I kind of knew the guys working there. And when I was at MI, they had us like, they had just a rack of donated guitars from ESP and other companies that they had us, just refret for the 50th time and rewire over and over and over again. So I went to the owner at Black Market and I said, I want to be a guitar tech. And I said, I'm at this, I'm over here at MI, and they got us working on, just guitars for no reason. Why don't you give me your broken guitars and I'll fix them for free? And I'll take him to the school. And he said, yeah, sure. Free guitar repair. Why not? And so I was doing that. And then Todd Youth was working at the store at the time. And he had a new band, the Chelsea Smiles, coming out. And they had a show, my first show. Hang on. My first show was opening for the Seeds. The Chelsea Smiles were called the Disciples at the time. The Seeds, Mr. Pushing Too Hard, Mr. Farmer. That's some old garage rock. So, yep, Disciples, aka Chelsea Smiles. That was my first show. And so then I did that, and they were signed, but they didn't, they weren't touring yet. They didn't have an album out yet. But I was like, they were getting a name for themselves. Very Hollywood.
Yeah,
I have a very Hollywood upbringing. And then I got out of my school, and the guys at the shop, they got a phone call from the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club saying they needed a guitar tech. And, because their guy couldn't finish the tour or whatever. And they threw my name out there and they hired me. And like, they're like, just don't tell them it's your first tour. And Todd Youth said, if they ask, tell them you worked with me with Danzig and you're all good. And so I went out there, and, I made a bunch of rookie mistakes. But I had the time of my life. And like, they were a great band, but it was, they were drunk. I was drunk. It was that kind of tour. It was great.
They were coming out of the Brian Jonestown Massacre right around there, right?
Yeah, it was right before Howl.
Yeah.
It would have been they were on their second album. Great bunch of guys. I haven't stayed in touch with them, but it was a great learning experience. But yeah, it was that was my first tour. And then I went back to doing local stuff in LA, a lot of studio stuff. And it's hard getting your first couple tours, getting people to trust you. My next tour was Hammerfall and Edguy, two Scandinavian heavy metal bands. I got that, through my heavy metal connections. And that was a lot of fun. And then, I did a lot of a couple of metal tours, building, bigger and bigger metal bands. Danzig was a big one when I finally, got on the Danzig crew. That was, pretty big shows for me.
Yeah,
big crowds, a band I grew up listening to. So that was a big stepping stone for me. And then, I did the Big Four tour with Anthrax. So that was, during with Metallica and Slayer and all of them. Like 15 years ago, I did both of those across Europe. That was a lot of fun.
Who'd you look after in Anthrax?
Frank Bello and Rob Caggiano. So the Stage Right guys. Yeah, Rob's in Volbeat now, or no? I think Rob just left Volbeat.
He just left Volbeat. Yeah,
I think he just left Volbeat. He does a lot of producer stuff. Great guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did, and then Frank just was in Satyricon, which I thought was, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty underground, but everybody else in Anthrax, had their side projects, and then Frank joins an underground black metal band. I didn't see that coming.
No.
But that was cool. So yeah, I did Anthrax, and then at the time I was living in a punk rock mansion, the Poor Kids Mansion, punk rock house in East LA. It's still there. They still have shows. I think like Ghoul and stuff like what. We had hundreds of kids coming over to our house on weekends for shows. It was brutal. We had a TV show, a radio, like an internet radio show. Hang on. Poor Kids Radio.
Oh, okay.
And that was
we were weekly, and my roommates worked with, like, they were, there was a bunch of us in the house, a lot of drug dealers and strippers, and other crew people for pair of brothers worked for Danzig. There's still one of them still there. Worked for Danzig and Cypress Hill. So through the Cypress Hill connections, where we did the radio show, and Cypress Hill had their 20th anniversary show coming up at the Troubadour, and they needed a guitar tech to take care of their two guest guitar players, Shavo from System of a Down and Slash. And, if you're a young guitar tech that grew up, that was Guns N' Roses was my Led Zeppelin. I hope Slash doesn't watch this. It makes him uncomfortable, and I never mention how big of a fan I am, because he's kind of like an uncle to me too now, and it's just weird to say, "Oh, pass the salt." By the way, you were my hero when I was 10. So yeah, I mean, I jumped at that chance, and I did every possible thing to try and stand out for that one or two songs he did at the Troubadour. And he was like, "Hey, let me get your phone number." And so I handed Slash my phone number at the Troubadour, and he called me a couple of days later. And the second gig I did with him was the Comedy Central roast of Charlie Sheen.
Oh, wow.
So standing there, and, we're like, I'd been a guitar tech and met famous people, and I'd been in Hollywood my whole life. But there I'm standing, holding Slash's guitar, standing next to like Mike Tyson, Slash, Steve-O, Captain Kirk, what's his name? Yeah, William Shatner, like every famous person from the 80s, and me in Slash's guitar. Like I was the only person there that was not super famous right before they went. You probably had those moments, where you're like, I guess this is where I am right now. And you just shut up and you do your job because that's who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Were you intimidated at all by that?
I mean, like, I knew where I was, but in the Marines, I worked with, I specialize in explosives and rocket launchers. So when you make a bomb and it doesn't go off and you have to go see why, everything you do in the music industry seems pretty tame in comparison.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't get stage fright. That's a lot from my, like, you know, I did a little bit when I started the TV show because, you know, you're looking at this little lens and all you can think is, yeah, that's 40,000 eyes.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I can walk out on dead center stage with a towel at an arena, you know, stadium and tell a bad joke. And it's whatever, you know, a big part of it is, you know, as techs, the pressure's not on us. Like these people didn't pay to see me. So if I get up there and I'm testing a guitar rig and I hit a sour note, is it a little embarrassing? Yeah, but nobody's going to ask for their money back.
No.
You know, nobody's going to throw anything at you. I mean, you might get booed, but you just laugh it off, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you just said, you know, you were an explosive. When a bomb doesn't go off, you know, you have to go. So that gives a whole new meaning to I've screwed up bigger gigs than that. This.
Well, I mean, like everyone's favorite question for me, you know, and I'm sure you get it too, is like, what's the worst thing you've ever seen at a show? And, you know, they think you're going to say, oh, because of a string break or no, none of it. Like, you know, you probably, you know, you do enough of these shows, you do somewhere tragedy strikes and people get hurt, unfortunately. And that makes every gear issue pale in comparison, you know? So like, and everybody like, at our level, you don't really have, you know, you have 2, 3, 4 of everything. Like, what if you break a string? You hand them another guitar. What if you blow 2? You use your backup. You know, like there's not like the only thing that's really going to stop the show dead is if the power goes out, and then you just sort of look at, you know, your audio tech and be like, bro, I feel for you right now.
Yeah.
Like, so like, you know, the idea that at our level gear is going to torpedo a show, it's, you know, it's really, really rare. I mean, you get the occasional, you know, you'll be watching an award show and some guitar player goes out there to play a famous intro and it's immediately apparent that, you know, his G string's a half step sharp and you're like, ooh, you know, you're like, well, that gig's available. You know, like, well, that dude's looking for work now, you know, and especially if you know the dude, you're just like,
man,
oh, bro, you know.
I know anything like that. Sometimes when stuff like that happens, my phone starts blowing up. Did you see that? Did you hear
no, I get every one of those. Well, and I mean, you've probably done those too, or like, you know, I've been flown halfway across the world to do a half a song unaccompanied to open a sporting event. You know, like there's my dude plugging into a half stack for, you know, 120 million people watching live at home. Like, I mean, it's not like you're bomb blowing up in your face, but you don't want to be the guy that everybody looks at, you know, because it makes the news. Like, you know, this, like,
oh yeah.
Like,
I know. We did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I love that kid.
Duran got inducted, and you know, they went into the first song. They were the first band to open up the ceremony. They went into the first song. There was no PA.
Yeah. And that gig is such a throw and go.
Yeah. And I remember me and the drum, you can't run out. They don't want you coming out there. So me and the drum tech are side stage going, what do we do? Like, it's not our gear that's not working.
Yeah.
They recovered perfectly, you know, so.
Mm-hmm. I had a blast doing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when Guns N' Roses got inducted. I mean, like, I don't care who's in or who isn't, you know, like all the, oh, this band should be in or that band shouldn't, whatever. But like that weekend I went and, you know, I just had a great time. I tore my pants. I have 1,000 stories. You know, I had one pair of pants and I tore them open the day before the show. And I'm sitting there like I went to the front desk at the hotel they had me checked in at, and there's everybody checking in for their Hall of Fame induction. And I've got I've got like, I go to the girl at the counter, I'm like, do you have a sewing kit? She said, yeah. I'm like, do you know how to sew? And she said, oh, hang on. And so I'm standing there at the front desk of like the Waldorf Astoria with a towel around my waist. Well, some girls in the back stitching my pants up, and there's the Roots. Like, I'm like, hey guys, like, and then I just, had this big gash in my pants, and I go show Slash. I'm like, dude, I tore my pants open and this and that. He goes, that's so rock and roll. I'm like, oh, so those are my rock and roll pants now.
Right on, man. So you and I met in Dallas. I don't know if you remember this. You were teching for Slash. You guys were opening up for Aerosmith.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, I don't know how I got the after show pass, but I went to the after show, and I was walking in, and you're talking to a couple of friends that live in Dallas, and I stopped and I go, "Hey, you're a Slash's tech," and I said, "Were you manually doing his pedals?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and then you reached in your pocket and gave me some pics, like, "Get away from me, son! You're bothering me."
Sorry,
Then we exchanged information, and then we've kept in touch since then. But
as you can imagine, that job comes with a lot of attention.
Oh man, I can imagine that.
To this day, most people don't know who his guitar tech is right now. I don't know. Do you know?
Well, I know he had Adam.
It's not Adam.
And then you came and
I covered for Adam for a month. But when Adam left, I told him I love Slash. I'll fill in, but that's a life sentence. Especially now, I've got a daughter that's 11 weeks old. So
congratulations, buddy.
Thank you. 11 weeks today.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
And because everyone, when you announced it on your social media, everyone was like super surprised. Not that you had a kid, no, but like normally.
I keep my personal life close to
exactly.
That's my good. Girlfriend doesn't like a lot of attention. So I try and respect that. And especially, I do get a lot of attention being Slash's tech. Less now that I'm not his guy, but his tech right now won't do press. Like the last tour, and it's happened before, like they'll have me do the rig rundowns, and I'm not really his tech. So they're like, Ace, you're going to do the rig rundown. I'm like, oh crap. So, I got my head full of everything else going on. I've got a different job. I don't keep track of his rig. People ask me Slash questions like I'm his biographer, his historian. Or
that's funny. Our next question is about Slash.
Oh, good.
What was the rarest piece of gear you looked out after him when you were looking after him? This piece of gear just does not leave your eyes.
The rarest?
Yeah.
Well, his number one Les Paul. He has, 58 Explorers, V's, late 50s bursts, all of the Bonamassa collectors ones. He has those, and occasionally he'll play them, but they're guitars to him. The one, the guitar will always be the Derek Les Paul. The Appetite for Destruction.
The
Les
replica,
Paul.
right?
Yeah, the one that was built. It's not really a Gibson.
Yeah.
He uses it on every album. It's down in Florida with him right now. They're recording with Elvis again. I can say that because they're updating about it. So yeah, that's the guitar. But at the same time, it's it's a workhorse guitar. Like it comes out for the studio, for photo shoots. It's not, like my most valuable guitar is a Les Paul prototype that he played on stage and then gave me and signed the back of the headstock, and it lives in a case in a fucking vault in a hole and started by little green men. That it's not a guitar; it's a museum piece to me. I play it to make sure it still works, but I have 40 some odd other guitars that I need a Les Paul. I don't, But yeah, so yeah, the Derek guitar is the main one. And then, he's pretty, like, they put out the book that has every guitar he owns. I don't even know. He's been on a guitar buying spree. He's got unlimited money for all practical purposes, and every guitar he touches appreciates in value. So there's no reason he can't have every guitar they make. But he's also not the most experimental. He's getting into pedal steel a lot. So he's been going down that rabbit hole. But he's also pretty traditional in that, like, he has like 1 7-string because he wanted a note for one song in the studio. So we got a 7-string, and he probably, tracked that song with it, and it's been on a shelf ever since. There's no fan frets, there's no headless, there's no, he's got a lot of Marshalls, a lot of Les Pauls, a lot of early BC Riches. What you would expect him to own, he just owns a lot of it.
Yeah.
What
about you? What kind of gear do you have that you can't live without?
I like to, I definitely have my, heavy metal roots. So I have a lot of, I have more SGs than anything. I have 6 of them. I have quite a number of Dunables, given my history with Sasha, including some of the very earliest, hey, I'm starting a guitar company. Oh, cool. Build me one, So I've got 2 of those that are, invaluable to me. And then, my friend, John Sullivan from Sully Guitars built me my current favorite guitar.
We know Sully very well.
Yeah. He's on the show.
Yeah. We talked him into doing the show early on.
Nice.
Yeah. His shop.
Here, let me show off.
Yeah.
Ooh.
My Sully Supernova.
Right on.
The black matte.
Black matte.
That's beautiful.
The neck.
Moon ebony. I love
the neck is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He makes great guitars, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it plays so good. I within a week of it arriving, I commissioned another one. I tell people, like, when that thing showed up, it was like I had a garage full of Ferraris and then an F1 car pulled in. Oh, that's a race car.
Yeah, he makes great guitars.
Yeah, that thing is it's insane, that guitar. Yeah. There, I just plugged it for him.
Yeah. You look like him. Breakfast with Sully, his little videos.
Endorsement.
Yeah.
Nice. If you were going to give a piece of advice to someone who wanted to become a guitar tech at your level, what would you tell them? Someone just starting out, maybe.
Well, that's an interesting question because, even I don't want to touch on politics, but going into this next year, even the world and culture is such a fickle place. I like to think I have 20 years of this career left, but I'm also intentionally, swimming with the whales. I work with legacy bands because they have budgets and, they have, stability and reliability. And are there going to be guitar techs 35 years from now? I have no idea. Like I look back at the advice my parents gave me as a kid 40 years ago, and a lot of it doesn't really apply, like they wanted me to stay in school and do all this, and I didn't follow any of their career path, and I feel like I did what my dad calls me a success, which is a great feeling. But, like looking at my daughter, I'm definitely getting her into music. Even at 11 weeks, I play guitar and she's fascinated. I dip her feet on the, synthesizer so she can make notes. She giggles. But yeah, like, I know Slash is going to be doing this for 20 more years. Matchbox 20 has staying power and legs underneath them and money in the bank to keep going. But Um, would I get into this industry at 22 thinking I'd be doing it at 62? I don't know, but like at the same time, there's so much uncertainty in the future. But to turn it, back into the cheeriness, if you do want to be a guitar tech, here's how you can do it. I think, the first thing is you need to be around the bands. Obviously the first step is to buy a guitar, take it apart, put it together, take it apart, put it together, take it apart, put it together, tune it, do all that stuff. You can learn all of that online. And a lot of it you learn OJT, like the etiquette of touring, like the different, there's a big difference between, it's like when a band is like, oh, we have the guy that produced the album doing front of house. And you're like, no, that's fucking dumb. Like you don't have 45 minutes to get a kick drum sound. Like, right. What are you doing? So like, I forgot where I was going with that. So yeah, like you learn guitar repair, but you also got to learn how to live on the bus and how to so I would say a good way to get started would be to learn as much about guitars as you can and learn about production. So get a job as a stagehand so you can learn the workflow, know what the hell load in means. It doesn't matter if you can, rewire a Marshall Plexi from scratch if you don't know how to direct the stuff coming in off the truck,
yeah,
or how to work with stagehands. So, and it's hard getting started. It really is. And especially at a small level, like, people are like, take me on tour with you. I can't do that. Like, I could take you on tour with me, but like, it's like, and, people are local, like, hey, I'd love to come see you work. I do one show in 100-mile radius of my house per year.
Yeah.
So like, it's, go to clubs, meet bands, learn how to, work for free. I know it sounds shitty, but, and then like, and then don't be afraid, anything in music, put your heart into it and make it, don't have a plan B, but have a second way to make money in the meantime. When I started, my dad worked catering with his friend, and I knew that like, no matter what, I could work, a couple days a month catering and have some cash so I could eat, because or like DoorDash or something like that.
Yeah.
So you have a way to sustain yourself flexible. Like Trader Joe's is a great one for young bands, because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm a guitar tech now. Somebody hire me. And then 6 weeks later, you starve to death.
Yeah.
That sucks. Right. And then you don't want to be a guitar tech anymore.
A non-guitar question. During the pandemic 2020, you started doing woodwork. You started building
spoons. Well, I built a lot of stuff.
Guitar boats. But you went into building these custom spoons.
Yeah.
Why spoons? I did buy one from you though, I loved it. So
thank you. Yeah. The spoon thing was, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of out of desperation. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd been sitting there at the house. I did the woodworking. And like I was having a real identity crisis during the pandemic. I'm so wrapped up in my career that when you take me out of the music business, in our industry, I have a great resume and connections and history and like, we don't talk much, but we speak the same language because we do this, it's a family. And then when you take me out of that, I'm a fish out of water, and so like I'm especially like I moved to Vegas right before the pandemic. So I wasn't even in Hollywood anymore. I was in a suburb, and like I ended up buying a Jeep. I bought that right before the pandemic, and I made a lot of friends in the Jeep community, and that was helpful for me socially and stuff. But yeah, the spoons, I was running out of money. I was running out of, like, I would just wake up. My girlfriend moved away, took the dog. I was just waking up and I didn't know what to do with myself. And then I was just sort of sitting there semi catatonic, and I saw a cheap bamboo spoon on the counter. And all I thought was, I could make a better spoon than that. And so I hand carved a spoon. And I think the first one I gave to my best friend, Bryce, and he reciprocated and just hand built me a wooden rocking chair.
Oh, wow.
So that paid off. Yeah, we've been best friends since kindergarten. So yeah, he built me a rocking chair over a month and a half. I can't believe he did that. So yeah, my first spoon went to him, and then I hand carved one for my dad. And then I thought, I can make spoons, but I also realized they took 2 days to hand carve. So unless I charge, $1,000 a piece for wooden spoons, there's no, and that's what, and so I started making spoons in my garage, and I cut out the blanks on a bandsaw and I marketed them. And I had, it gave me purpose. It gave me something to do, and it connected me to a lot of my friends, because I made a couple things. My mom's husband commissioned me to make some desks. Like, I made a bunch of furniture in my house. My mom's husband commissioned me to make some desks for students learning at home. But all my friends are spread out. Like, here in this town I live in Michigan, I know like 4 people. But I have 1,000 friends, I have as many friends in London as I do in this town, I have friends in Australia and Africa and, all over the world. And with the spoons, like, it was something that I could sell to them, and they'd reach out, be like, hey, good to hear from you. Like, let me get a spoon. And so people were coming out. And so it really helped me socialize and reconnect with old friends. And, at the end, I made spoons for a month and a half. And I think when it was all said and done, I think I made my weekly rate.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like I wasn't getting rich. It was, putting food in my mouth, but it really, it helped me out when I really was lost. It gave me purpose and direction, and it made me feel productive and connected, when I was sitting there going from being a world famous guitar tech to another side story to the pandemic was I was sitting there, like, I went from being the center of the music business, hanging out at Mates every day on my days off, hugging Kiefer Sutherland, to like stuck in an suburb. I didn't know anybody. But right when I moved to Las Vegas, Billy Gibbons moved to Las Vegas at the same time, and we're friends. And so, like, about once every other month, he'd hit me up just kind of at random and give me a guitar to work on, or like, so I'm sitting there alone, isolated, and then just out of the blue, Billy Gibbons comes by and takes me to lunch, and just sort of reminded me that, like, I'm part of something bigger, like, so that was pretty cool. I love Billy. I say he's probably the coolest person I know.
Yeah.
Call it like Debbie Harry.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, brother, I appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
Like I said, there's a lot of cats I want to ask, and then I think, like, they're not going to do it. But you've done a lot of cool stuff, and you've always been cool to me, and you always answer my text when I text you. So that's
I can't, like you said, I can be a little standoffish or weird to people I don't know, just because you get bombarded so much, at this job, and like, but if you're on the tech side, if you're on crew, you're family,
Right
like,
on,
I don't
man.
mean to be rude to anybody, but
no, likewise from here too. It's hard to not answer,
Yeah. So it's some days you're busy and distracted.
Yeah.
But I love you. Thank you. Support Samantha Fish. She's great.
Are you out with Samantha? Have you worked with Samantha?
I did the blues tour this summer, and she was one of our openers. She was great.
Yeah.
All of our openers were great. And that's one thing I like about stage managing is, I actually do get to work with the openers and stay friends with, like when you're a guitar tech, the opener, you say hi to them when you see them in catering and you sort of know who they are. But when you're stage manager, like I keep in touch with them. Like I've been stage manager for the girls in Plush, and it's been great to see them, grow and do stuff. Emily Armstrong, who's the singer from Linkin Park, her band was our opener 2 or 3 years ago. So it's just like that. Oh, I like that about stage managing. You get to be more involved with the other bands on the tour.
Right on.
Get involved in what they're doing too.
Cool. Well, that our podcast, it's called Is Breakfast Included?
Mm-hmm.
And if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
Well, this morning I made oatmeal again. I bought some walnuts. I mean, I usually don't eat breakfast. I usually just drink coffee. On tour, if we're at the hotel, I'm vegan or plant-based. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not preachy, so I say plant-based, not vegan. So a lot of times all I could have is like the tater tots or hash browns and coffee. Some days I'll break my own rule and have a croissant or a muffin. At home, I usually don't eat breakfast, but today I did oatmeal. Other times if I want to go fancy, I'll do a tofu scramble, and I can make my own, with potatoes and stuff. I don't really know how to cook, but I could throw a bunch of stuff in a pan with hot oil. It does its own thing, and I throw hot sauce on it.
That counts.
That's me cooking. I don't know how to cook. I just buy food and throw it in a pan and make it hot and eat it with sauce.
That's what
or
I
not
do
sauce.
here.
Yeah.
That's great.
I usually tend to smell it first to make sure it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I look at dates, and I usually, if I open something, I see the bottom of the package, or I finish it the next day. Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, thanks a lot, man. Thank you for your time, dude. And
thanks for having me. Yeah, no,
I look forward to crossing paths with you.
Yeah, I'm honored. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks. This has been fun. I was looking forward to this. I was hoping you'd ask me someday. Not gonna lie.
Cool, man. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Good talking to you.
Take care, everybody.
Right on, Ace Bergman. That was a lot of fun, right? Really, really, really cool guy. If you want to find out more about Ace, you can find him on Instagram at Ace Guitar Tech. Check out what he's doing. He posts pretty frequently when he's on the road. So anyway, don't go stalk him if you want to be asking questions about Slash, where he lives, what's his phone number, give him my demo tape. Don't be doing all that. Don't embarrass us is what I'm asking you. But while you're online, you can patronize us and check out isbreakfast.com. Go like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Rate and review the show at Apple Podcast. And of course, check out our online store and perhaps purchase something. Anyway, I am done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.